surprised if these are both undefeated players.
Yep. James Rynkiewicz, I believe, is on probably on the same band deck that he was on for the Grand Prix.
Right. And that was the Force of Will Free band.
Yeah, I believe so. If you want to check the pairings, we can actually figure out where they are, probably.
Table 2.
Yeah,
that's
undefeated. I wonder how far the undefeateds go down. 120 or 200. I can do the math, or I cannot do the math.
Are you going to make Pascal's triangle there and try to whittle it on down?
It's too many rounds. I don't want to go. I did it once. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to JSS Champs. It's a 16-round event. Let's do this. I spent like hours like laying out this giant triangle on like 16 rounds. I'm just like, ugh.
One of the things about doing Pascal's triangle is that it doesn't take into account draws.
Oh God, I know.
For those of you who don't know, if you've got a certain number of players in an event, you can kind of figure out where people will be, how many people will be at each of the records at a certain point in the tournament. But Pascal's triangle works in binary choices, win, lose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually figure in draws, so you have to be a little bit cautious about how you apply that when you're trying to make your drawing decisions. I definitely know people who have incorrectly used Pascal's triangle to try to figure out whether they should draw or not, and drawn themselves out.
Well, the standings are sitting right there for them to check.
Yeah.
I was talking with, I think Chris Mascioli about this, about how no one's really, like, people write about, oh, this is how you look at standings, but no one's really, like, people write all these articles, but, like, they never really explain, like, some of the more, like, intricate, weird scenarios that come up that, you never figure out until, like, you've lived through them.
Absolutely. One of the things, I actually think that the best person I've seen for standings, and there's probably other people that are similar to this, are scorekeepers and people that do tournament coverage. Yeah. So Glenn Jones, his predictive powers on tiebreaks, really, really good. Certain scorekeepers, really, really good. Now, the thing is, don't ask your scorekeeper at a tournament you go to, hey, can I draw?
They'll be like,
they can't tell you. They're not allowed.
But your friend who's playing, who's also a scorekeeper.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, the math itself actually can be a little bit fuzzy, but just the gut experience of seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of top eights.
There's a lot of weird things where, like, this match plays out. Do these people draw? Do you draw here? What happens if, these guys play it out and these guys win first, and then these guys are like, oh, well, they're down 2 tables down and they're done, so we're going to draw. Yeah. Which, as long as you don't, ask outside the, like, if you don't go to extreme lengths of asking people what the results of the match were, you can just observe and see, oh, they're done. Well, let's.
You've got to be very cautious about any kind of outside information.
Yeah.
You don't want, for example, let's pretend that I'm playing an opponent and you're playing next to me, and there's some result. If I say to you, hey, what happened? That can be asking for outside information. So,
but if you just look and you see, they're signing the match, and you're like, well, they played their match out. Would you like to draw?
Right.
That's fine. I had an interesting one with outside information, actually at the Star City in DC. Last round, 7:01. Everyone's sitting down for their match, about to sit down for their matches. I tell the other undefeated to draw with his zoo opponent because it's good in the mirror. Because it was Mary Jacobson, she had low lines and stuff. Well, he had bigger guys. And because he was sitting down at his table, he was in his match, and I was giving outside assistance. Got a match loss. In the top 8.
This is similar to, let's pretend that you're walking up to your pairing in the middle of a round, right? And you say to your friend, hey, what's Ari playing? They can tell you, but if you sit down...
Once you are sitting at your table,
you're in a match.
Yes. So, be sure to run around and ask your friends before you're sitting down and before they are sitting down.
I mean, one of the things you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be breaking the rules of the game. And that's not just the rules like, oh, how does Magic work? That's the rules like, how does a tournament rules work?
Yes.
Yeah, breaking the rules of how Magic works, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
If your opponent has a sharpshooter, something dies, they can't not untap it. If they've got a shrine, they can't not put a token on it. They're not allowed.
I really want to know I asked Tom Lapildis in Nagoya and wanted to know, how intentional was it to make the shrines mandatory? Because, they always talk about this Phyrexian feel of, making things feel, weird and off and unusual. And, when you first hear, oh, my opponent forgot the shrine, and they're like, oh, let's go back and do this. It's like, oh, really? That's what's happening? So, it looks like James has added 2 Force Wills. Oh, he's on No Rug actually now.
That is our, I believe, 3rd time seeing No Rug.
No Rug's very popular this week. It's probably the interaction between, a lot of these lists have days that's really good against Hive Mind. Showing it Progenitus sometimes beats Hive Mind too. Like, they go for the Emrakul. Progenitus sometimes races if you have enough permanents.
Absolutely. And then the other part too is you could have nibbled them away with a hit from Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
And then have the
power unblockable.
There you go.
Dead.
Boom.
Protection from everything includes giant Cthulhu gods.
Yep, this is true.
And Tim Pskowski is on, appropriately for his Callblade win, Blue-White Fairies with Stoneforge Mystic, Spellstarter Sprite, Vendilion Click. He has Fire and Ice, Feast and Famine, and Batterskull as his tutor package, Ancestral Visions as his card draw, and his counter package, as I said, Sprite, Force, and Misstep with some Jaces. He's playing Riptide Lab.
Riptide Lab with Spellstarter Sprite and Vendilion Click. Just
Stoneforge
fabulous.
Mystic being an Artificer. Yeah. And he is beautiful too.
Yeah.
This is a lot like the old extended deck, where Riptide Lab locked a lot of people out in that format. Interesting choice. James has 2 Ponder in his sideboard. Presumably that's for matchups where he wants to have more natural orders, but isn't going to fully commit to, I guess, personal tutoring for them maybe. But he has 2 more Ponders in his sideboard for natural orders, I'm assuming.
I mean, in a sense, they're kind of like weak brainstorms, right?
I mean, he has the 4 brainstorms, 2 Ponders, just wants a bit more dig when he needs to hit that Progenitus.
Right. And, I mean, also more blue spells is a little bit of Force of Will bait for his 2 Force of Wills.
That's true. Might just want to board in the Ponders if he's supporting, because he only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16. He does have the right number of blue cards to support enough Force of Wills. So, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. He's only running 1 Dryad Arbor. That's what you were a bit more used to.
When you looked up, I believe, either AJ or perhaps Alex,
yep.
They had 2. So maybe the second Dryad Arbor is just becoming something that's showing itself to be more useful.
Yeah. Alex had 2. Both people on top of the Seattle had 2. So I want to see where that trend goes. We saw 2 in that feature match. So, maybe we'll see 2 again. Maybe James Rynkiewicz will, have some reason for 1.
Go James with a Noble Hierarch facing off with Tim. Tim has Flooded Strand. Never mind, they got it.
I'm expecting to see Ancestral Vision suspended on 1. This was the whole debate we were having, Visions versus Standstill, and, we'll see how Visions does this game.
Right. Well, I mean, Visions is sometimes not good enough.
Yeah.
But in general, I think the only decks I like Standstill in are decks that can commonly have a clock on the table.
Sure. I think that maybe with Stoneforge being in the decks is a little different than the Drew Levin one. I think that the other thing
That's a very different thing, yeah.
Yeah,
very,
I think
very
the other
different.
thing is that as decks move to things that are going to trump a Batterskull, like the Knight of the Reliquary, Standstill gets a lot better because you Stoneforge...
Main phase Vendilion Click.
Yeah.
So that is a click, right?
Yep. Another deck with a lot of foils, it looks like, on both sides. Isn't it Ancestral Visions?
I see a Mental Misstep. I think that's...
Is that a
What is
Judge
that?
Foil Vendilion Click on the left?
I can't tell. The art is
I see his
obscured.
own Vendilion Click, a Swords, a Misstep, and what I think is a Judge Foil Vendilion Click, but I have not really taken a good look at that art yet, so I'm going to do that right now.
Now, James is the kind of player who, at Star City Games Boston, I think really showed me how he approaches the game. He and his friend had sat down in an empty room. It was the night before the tournament, and they had just been practicing the High Tide Mirror for a couple of hours.
Oh.
Like,
that mirrors.
that is not a pleasant mirror to play.
No.
And so that gives you a sense of the kind of way that James approaches the game. He's like, yeah, I've got a couple hours to kill. Let's sit down and play High Tide against each other.
Yeah.
Very deliberate, very much going to spend a lot of energy making sure that he's playing the best game he can.
Can you see what that top card is?
Really, it's hard for me to tell with some of these things. That's the swords that he's getting rid of, but what's he keeping? Mental Misstep and cards that are hard for me to see with even our good cameras here for that.
That might be a Judge Foil Wasteland. I can't really tell.
It looked like a land to me.
Yeah, it was a land for sure. So Visions ticks down to 3.
I'd just like to walk you through what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be starting off with the draft. This draft will be called. For those of you who
We get a Mutavault, is that maybe? What is, no, a lab? Is that a lab?
No, I think that's the Wasteland.
The Judge Foyle Wasteland, okay. Perhaps.
Might also be a Delta. I don't know if they changed the art on those.
It's really hard to tell. 4th land here from James Rynkiewicz. Attacking for 3 here.
will be passing out small pieces of paper that will let you know where you're going to be seated.
Passes with a Daze in hand, and looks like a counter spell in hand. Ancestral Visions ticks down.
We have 64 players in this draft total.
Down comes a Polluted Delta.
We will come to the top 8, and there will be an additional top 8 draft. Once that draft is over,
Tim says go.
at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Coach Steve.
The end of the turn, there's a potential for a Brainstorm plus a fetch, but James's hand actually looks like it could be pretty good. Tim, during upkeep, sacrifices the fetch land, trying to make a stifle a little bit more painful for James if James wants to do it, because it'll be on his own turn. Casting a Vendilion Click of his own, tapping out. James, I believe, does have a both Daze and Counterspell in hand.
Jesse Bofarka. Jesse Bofarka, if you're in the room, please report your pod draft open. Jesse Bofarka.
Here we see, yeah, Daze, Brainstorm, Counterspell, Bolt. Hard cast the Daze. He could even just actually just 1 mana float and do the alternate cost just to spend less actual mana. Not a big deal for him to let that happen. Draws his card for the turn. Lays the Tropical Island once again, or is about to. Attacks with Vendilion Click. Knocking Tim to, before he attacks.
Green Sun Zenith,
Green Suns
possibly.
for 2, maybe getting a Kasali Pride Mage?
Wrong deck. You're thinking of the bad deck.
You're right. My bad.
Getting a Tarmogoyf.
Tarmogoyf.
That is the Judge Foyle Wasteland.
Attacks for 3.
4. There's a Noble Hierarch actually hiding there under those lands, I think.
There's a Noble Hierarch in there?
Yeah, it looks like it, I think.
With the glare, I can't tell.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're correct, because he cast on turn 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And down spins the Ancestral Vision.
All right, players, we have everyone, and we're ready.
Tim lays a Flooded Strand.
Looks like he has the Batter Skull in his hand. Not really where he wants it.
Draw. Go ahead.
Looks like James has a Brainstorm that he's just holding out to here. Tarmogoyf gets in there with the Vendilion Click. He gets Swords.
Brainstorm, Lightning Bolt, and what other cards in there? Green Sun,
Suns,
Zenith.
and something else. So that, let's see, Swords is going to make him gain
Creature, instant,
land. I think 3.
Is there a Ponder?
Don't remember. That is, that's the Vendilion Click, I believe. Yep.
Wow.
Very different looking art.
These alternate art cards make it a little bit harder to call the match.
So, Legend Duel for that Vendilion Click possibly coming down.
There's the one mystery card in James's hand. It's another blue card, and I can't quite figure out what it is. Casts or fetches in response to that Vendilion Click. Gets a volcanic island.
Yeah. That is not a legal choice, actually.
It's only legal if Vendilion Click is in play.
There's 2 Vendilion Clicks. Legend Rule applies before either player has priority. Oh,
Okay,
Spellstutter Sprite. Oh,
Is that what that is?
yes.
Ah, yay for alternate art, making things confusing.
Too many new arts. Okay, so there we go. That's what's going on. Okay. Now that we've confirmed exactly which promo cards are being played, James is resolving this brainstorm after fetching, which is a bit unfortunate, but something he's probably going to have to accept here because the fetch gave him the red mana. Looks like he has, let's see, I'm seeing that right? Yep, Grim Lavamancer in hand, Lightning Bolt in hand, another Vendilion Click to replace the one currently in play, and a Brainstorm. And I think he's hiding, looks like some red spells being hidden. So Tim behind because of the mental misstep, mental misstep damage pushes him further towards dead, but definitely not behind. That vision is going to go off real soon, and James doesn't have too much of an offense right here. Ancestral Vision is going to go on the stack right here. James looking at a hand of Brainstorm, Vendilion Click, and Lightning Bolt has no response. Tim draws a Force Will, Mutavault, another Spellstutter Sprite, and let's see, he might Wasteland that Volcanic Island, keep James off of red. Brainstorming with a fetch land. Looks like you drew Island and can't see what the rest were, but presumably with that full grip can find something to put back. Let's see. Yeah, I'd probably Wasteland the red source. James, I believe, missed a land drop in there too. Yep, there comes the Wasteland. James draws the Grim Lavamancer that he hid, but no longer has the mana to cast. Presumably debating between brainstorming into a land or just having Vendilion Click up. Probably going to draw step Vendilion Click or wait till end of turn, depending on how much he fears a counter spell. It's probably reasonable to assume that Tim doesn't have any huge threats. You know, a Jace will come down, but the Vendilion Click can take care of that pretty easily. So he doesn't actually have to fear anything that Tim's going to do as a main phase. Just wait till end step, make Tim use his mana. Yep, there's a Stoneforge Mystic. I can see this getting, well, it can get Fire Ice or Feast and Famine or Batter Skull. Yep, there's the Fire and Ice. Presumably just trying to connect to make a quicker clock, and more importantly, feels that him drawing cards is going to lock out James more than James discarding cards, because James already low on cards. Tim's got a lot of counters in his deck, including Spellstutter Sprite. Vendilion Click goes on the stack for James. Tim thinks about whether he wants to Force Will that, I believe. James can represent natural order off a drawn land, so yep, uses the Force, pitching a Spellstutter Sprite. Goes to 7 life, getting closer and closer to burn range. Though James does not have a red source. James can Green Sun Zenith for Tarmogoyf here, or another Noble Hierarch, but I think Tarmogoyf just want the threat as opposed to the mana here, because even though you can draw a natural order, Tarmogoyf hits are going to be just as lethal.
Is his hand Brainstorm, Green Sun, Zenith, Grim Lava, Mancer, Lightning Bolt?
Yes.
Okay.
Brainstorm's also pretty good.
To me, this looks to me like a classic main phase Brainstorm.
Yeah. Especially because he can Green Suns after regardless.
Yeah.
Maybe getting an Olahark isn't the best, but getting in for 2 with that Hierarch, nope, just chooses to go for the Tarmogoyf. Yeah, because the sword is going to... Yeah, he does... He's short. Yeah, next turn if he plays the land, he does have enough to put the sword on the Mutavault and crash in. So if he gets the Noble, he's going to chump block. But if he gets the Tarmogoyf, that block is going to be profitable. If I counted correctly, I think there's creature, instant, sorcery from visions. That's what it is. Land. There we go.
Brainstorm end of turn.
Yep.
Flooded Strand in play, so Tim can turn this into quasi-ancestral recall.
There's a swords for Tim. So if Tim has an untapped land, it's pretty easy for him to... we could also just shoot up the Stoneforge Mystic. There we go. He doesn't have to Stoneforge the sword in play. But Tim can pretty easily just swords down this Tarmogoyf through a daze even, actually. He just EOT fetches a land, swords it, can pay for daze, untaps, and then doesn't have to worry about daze on the sword if he has a land, or if he just if he has a land, he can either Stoneforge it onto the Mutavault for +1 damage, but having to pay to re-equip, or just equip it to the Stoneforge.
And a turn fetch.
Yep.
Could bode ill for James. There it is.
Yep, that's the swords that we were just talking about. Takes the Tarmogoyf out. Puts James up a few more life, but a few swords hits will not only take all that away, but just establish Tim's hand to a point where James can no longer win. Tim draws. Cast sword.
Sword.
James doesn't have the daze.
Just think about all of the card
Tim
advantage that's about to happen here. Boom, draw a card, kill your Noble Hierarch.
Yep. Tim was fairly low on cards for having resolved divisions. I didn't realize that. James,
Main phase Brainstorm.
Yep, trying to find some kind of answer.
And now the Bolt is not good enough to stop to try to kill that Stoneforge.
Yeah.
Pro red.
James decides to keep some.
Tim is at 6.
He might have 2 lightning bolts in hand, so.
He can go Grim Lava Mancer.
No, it's 2 lightning bolts.
Is it 2 bolts?
Yep. Bolt you now.
Yeah, he's like, wait a second, I'm just gonna shoot you and see what happens.
Yep.
Okay, that resolved. Okay, cool.
Classic
Next
red
turn,
spells.
I hope I don't lose this bolt in my hand.
It looks like Tim drew a swords, so that's gonna stop this plan pretty well. He can swords his own Stoneforge Mystic or his Mutavault and just kill it off. And that looks like a mental misstep too, so he has a bunch of options as to how to answer this lightning bolt plan. Yeah, from here it should be pretty easy for him to mop up, especially with the Stoneforge Mystic finding, Batterskull.
That card's okay.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Only was one of the contributors to Stoneforge being banned in Standard.
Batterskull. That's another card that makes me angry.
Yeah, I remember playing the Twin Blade deck, and it was just started with War and Peace, cut it, added a second Batterskull, had a Feast and Famine, was just going to cut it for another spell because we never got anything but Batterskull. So James is pretty much committed to throwing the other bolt at the face here, I think. Debating what other options he has right here. Maybe he can natural order somewhere along the line to win, but doesn't have the mana. Can maybe Green Suns for a Tarmogoyf, but... Yep, I guess he's going to choose that. Maybe try and bait the swords out of his hand to clear the way for the bolt to be lethal.
I mean, the thing that's really nice about this play is that the Tarmogoyf is sufficiently large that it can't simply be Sword of Fire and Ice through, and that means that it's possible that Tim might use a Swords to Plowshares on that Tarmogoyf, giving Tim less ways to stop the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
He still will have the Mental Misstep, but
Tim can also just flash in the, well, not flash, but main phase Batter Skull, suit it up with a sword, and that's going to be bigger than that Goyf. Nope. Chooses to let James just go ahead. There's a Noble Hierarch in play. Gonna pump up that Tarmogoyf so it needs to be blocked.
wow,
Ooh.
this could summon the Mental Misstep. It's like, I got 3 life. Mental Misstep's pretty good.
Yeah.
Mental Misstep.
To make it a 5/6.
Tarmogoyf swings. Tries to eat something.
Probably just gonna munch on a Mutavault or that Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep, the Extraneous Mystic, which is going to bring a Batterskull down the turn after. Respond to the Germ.
That's a Spell Stutter Sprite and a Concession.
Wow.
Okay, so Blue-White Fairies takes down game 1 on the back of regaining every bit of advantage it had lost when James had his only red source wastelanded and was stuck with some red cards in hand after a Brainstorm did not get shuffled away.
James was just incredibly close to being able to take that open.
Yeah, just the Visions Resolve gave him a few more options and just kind of let him reestablish a board control with that Stoneforge Mystic.
James definitely has access to Pyroblast. Ancient Grudge is another consideration versus all of the Stoneforge Mystic equipment.
Same with Trigon Predator.
Trigon Predator is great.
As is that Umazawa's Jite?
It is Jite.
I can see Jite against this deck being awesome.
I mean,